Welcome to Being Humankind with your hosts Brian, Mike, and Neely. We explore what it means to be human in a time of disconnection.
What is the most meaningful silence you have ever experienced?
I have two. I can't choose between them, so you're going to get them both. So, the first one was, like I said, our daughter had open heart surgery when she was 3 months old, and when they took her to go to the surgery, like they only let us go so far, and then they took her. And in that, like, Mike and I just stood there watching our 3-month-old daughter go down a hallway in silence, not knowing what was going to happen. You know, we had one of Mike's friends, one of his best friends, years and years before, his daughter had a similar surgery, and she was on the table for 17 hours and was in the hospital for like 6 weeks. So we didn't know what was going to be what. I mean, fortunately for Amelia, she was on the table for less than 2 hours. She was out of the hospital in 6 days. But at that point, we didn't know that. So, and I think I blocked that, like, that whole vision out for a long time, because you kind of like, you just compartmentalize it. Like, there was that moment, and okay, we're going to put that away. And then in the next moment, that's when we were all back in the waiting room. And, you know, my family's part Italian, and we roll in big numbers. So my dad rented an apartment like next to the hospital, and we were all there. But in that one moment where Mike and I watched her go down the hallway, that one moment of silence, like everything, all the fear, all the hope, all the, like, anxiety as new parents, and then having to deal with this whole surgery, that was all in there. And then on the flip side of that, a few years ago, my paternal grandmother was diagnosed with lung cancer. Now she chain smoked like my entire life. And when I went back to work, she took care of Amelia, and she stopped smoking then. And she adored Amelia, like adored her. She and my great aunt, who's living with her at the time, would just stare at her the whole time. Like, she would be in her, the bassinet or like the car seat, and they would just stare at her. When she got older, like, she would buy like 52 different things for her to have, like, for breakfast or lunch. Well, I just wanted her to have a variety. Like, when she was in preschool, I mean, this is the same woman that would be like, here's a bologna sandwich, get out of the house, like during the summer, locking the door out. But not for Amelia. Amelia got 52 different varieties of everything. So when Amelia went back to school, Grammy got bored. Grammy started smoking again. And she was diagnosed that year in April with lung cancer, and she wanted to have a big party for Memorial Day, which she did. July 4th, she was taken to the hospital, and, the doctor said to my dad and my aunts, you know what's going on. They said, yep, she's refusing treatment. Yep. She wants to go home, and that's where she wants to ride it out. So I had that whole, obviously I have summers off, and my aunt and my cousin Erica and I sat there for 6 weeks while she had her last time at home. And at the beginning, she was still trying to get out of bed and she wanted coffee and she wanted, she probably would have smoked cigarettes if we would have let her. But it got progressively quieter. And then it was just the noise of her oxygen machine. And she had a couple of really good days where she was very coherent, and she made fun of my jeans and said that it was very unfortunate that Mike couldn't buy me pants that didn't have holes in them. And she told me that he worked very hard and she hoped that I fed him because he must be very hungry. And I told him if that was the last thing she ever said to me, then I was going to give him a smack. Not that it's his fault, but I'm like, come on, But then she got progressively quieter. And on her last day, she waited for everybody to be out of the room. And I'm like, I'm just going to run home. And then she died. And the first thing when I got into the house was it was silent. There was no more, the oxygen machine wasn't going. She wasn't shifting around. Nobody was talking. That was it. So I was really glad that I had that time that summer, that I didn't have to work, that I was able to sit there. It was scary at times. My aunt's a nurse, so as long as she was there, I was like, all right, everything's good. But eventually she had to go home sometime. And my cousin and I, who's a year older than I am, we were both like looking at each other like we were the little kids again, like we were 6 and 5, and I'm like looking for the adult. And I'm like, you have to be the adult because you're older than I am. If anything happens, you have to do something. But that was my other silence.